listen to what the seller's saying. That's all we did. I coupled it with what Corolla told me going there, because if I was there, I would have got the same vibe, right? And you put the two and two together, and you go, okay, they kind of want to be gone. This deal was a referral to us. Now, I'll stop each time I think there's a lesson. The referral in and of itself is a big lesson. I'm going to have Rick later, no pressure, Rick, go over what Zach went over yesterday with the office visit about how to get more referrals just from realtors and stop cutting that communication off. And then a realtor called back and Zach went in there and did it for him. So I'll have Rick kind of summarize how that went. Nick and I have a meeting this afternoon at 4 o'clock with a wholesaler outfit that already sent us 3 deals and wants to keep sending like several per month. Like, not a small deal. So this deal is a referral, but please understand how powerful the referral is, because when you get a referral, you usually get the deal, right? It's not a cold call. So this woman was in our database and said, call my daughter. The daughter's not behind. She lives in Florida. She is moving to, I think it's Texas. Corolla will tell me if any of this is wrong, because she went to visit the house. I didn't. I did it over the phone. The numbers are as follows. And then I'll tell you the communication, because it was interesting. And I copied Corolla, blind copied her on all the communications so she could just take it as a learning lesson. I have the purchase sales in front of me. They bought it for, this is the only number I'm going to be a little off on. If someone's on Zillow, Corolla, or Nick knows. I want to say they bought it for 320s or something like that in 21. Bottom line is, here's what the numbers are today.
They bought it for 342 November of 21.
Okay. We're getting super strong comps at 380 without considering terms, just like if I wanted to sell it tomorrow. So when Corolla went, Corolla got a sense that we didn't know why, because they're not behind, but they just wanted to be done and move on. When I called them originally, they're going to go rent. So there's a hint about they don't need the money right now, right? I always love when they say, we're going to go rent. We don't know what we're doing in that market yet. Perfect. They owe, I'm going to use round numbers. These numbers are slightly off by a few hundred. They owe 320 on the house. The communication that I copied Corolla back and forth, and this, take some notes if I don't make sense, just ask me. But what I did with him is what I told you guys to do. I literally typed in the email. He said, there's comps at 370 or 371. I said, that's if you went on the market. If you did, you'd get, I forget what number I used, 96.5 or 97% of your ask, because Corolla told me there's a bunch of homes in the market. I use that to our advantage. And then you got to pay your realtor. So you're going to net somewhere, I think it was in the high 20s, low 30s. He pulled back on that, and I just said, well, that's how I'd operate it. You don't have to deal with showings, you don't have to do anything, because again, Corolla gave me a hint that they just want to move on. They don't want to do showings and all that crap. So I offered them the balance on your mortgage plus $31,000, no interest, no payments in 48 months. That's the offer I gave him. I just did it by email at first. Then it progressed to, okay, let me check around and see. Now they're younger, and this is a sub 2. So as soon as they said, I want to check around, I said, and these are all good, like really important script things for you, because you're going to get the same exact thing. I said, okay, if you check around, you're probably not going to run into people that do creative real estate. So why don't I give you an attorney in Florida who does creative real estate? You can meet with him. I'll use my attorney. You can use him. I did refer him to Charles Castellone. I've referred him so many people. He knows creative real estate inside and out, and he's very good. Charles met with them 2 or 3 days ago and emailed me privately and said, Chris, they should be fine. I explained to him that I put it in a trust while they own it. I changed the beneficiary to you guys, so it should not trigger any due on sale or anything. He does it very private like that. This attorney is very conservative. He explained that to them. They had one question. No, they had 3 questions for me on email this morning before they said yes. One was, can you close sooner? I said, no, but if you sign it, we're already a week later. We already killed a week, so now we have to push the date out a week. But if you sign it, we'll get going fast and try to get in there faster. But right now it's June 5th, and they'll make the June 1 payment. So we don't have to pay in this thing till July 1. The payment on that, I want to say is like 16 and change. We didn't get the statement back in. I was just going from memory. The other 2 questions were, what is clause 14.5 in the sub 2? So I looked it up. It's the bottom of all the disclosures of the sub 2s, and it talks about releasing us from liability. And I said, it releases us from liability, which is all the clause says. But I said, it's probably a moot point, in my opinion. I didn't give her advice, because Charles probably told you he's putting this in a trust and it's not going to show any transfer of deed anyway. So she said, okay, thanks for answering. I'm trying to think of the third question. I don't remember the third question. It was something to do with logistics. It was nothing. So that deal gets sent by doc. They said, send us the DocuSign. We'll get that signed. So Nick's going to put that on the market. I don't know what yet. I'm guessing $389.9. If you do the math.
Gosh, no. That's too low.
Low? Okay, good.
If an identical house is selling, this is good for everyone to hear. If an identical house is selling like a stone's throw from this property, like within 50 square feet, same bedrooms and baths, for $380 today, my initial reaction was $399.9. If not, because it's a sub 2, remember we have to take everything into account. Because this is a sub 2 and we don't have a clock ticking on the other end, it might even go up to $409.9. But it's nothing concrete yet. Those are all just ideas. Literally 5 minutes before this call, I was able to plug in, look at comps in the area and everything. So,
okay, so I'm trying to think of any other nuances. Any questions so far? Any of those little pieces? Because they're all things you'll probably hit in a sub 2. And I don't think it would have won if I didn't have an attorney talk to them. I think they would have got squirrely by talking to someone who has no clue and say, no, don't do that. I think. Robert.
So Nick, since you said it's a sub 2 and you would go up even higher because it's open-ended on our end. So could you explain that a little bit more of why you would raise the price for that? Because you're not limited to the 2 years?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's why I wanted to say it, because my brain, Robert, immediately went to, $399.9, even though, that's where it went. Just because I know typically when we're trying to figure out a price that we're going to sell it to a rent-to-own buyer, we look at, okay, we'll mark it up. We'll take 10% of that best comp and then mark it up by that. However, if we did that, that would put it up at $418. So that's a little bit too high. Because it's a sub 2, and we're going to have it forever, I think we would start there at $409.9, and then if we get, this is all subject to change, and then if we get pushback or a bunch of pushback, which I don't anticipate we'll get, but if we do get that, that's something we can adjust down to $399.9.
So I guess a follow-up to that. So basically, you will market it as a sub 2 or a rent-to-own, but
Yep.
may just turn it into a rental primarily to begin with?
No, good question. So we're going to, every time, it doesn't matter what type of deal it is, we're always going to sell it on a rent-to-own. In the majority of the cases, 90% of the cases, we're going to find that the buyer is able to become mortgage ready inside of 24 months. So we're going to end up doing a 24-month lease. I just didn't want to raise it too high, or this is all fluid. This is all happening literally as we speak. So these are all just ideas in my head. Just the state of the market and where it is now, as opposed to where it has been the past 4 or 5 years, I want to kind of hedge against that and not raise it too high. No, I wasn't thinking rent it, just a straight rental. That's never where my head goes initially.
Let me tack on to that, Robert. What we will do, however, is when Nick has the buyer meeting, we will, after the buyer meeting's done and they think they're going for financing someday, maybe, we'll put the carrot in there that if they come up higher on their deposit, and we might even push that higher than we normally do, over time, we would consider owner financing them so they don't have to deal with the bank. And I didn't tell you guys, the underlying rate on this is, I think it's like 2.875. So we could, in theory, finance this to-be buyer, we just started here, at, pick a number, 5.5% and be way below the market. 6.5% will be below market without all the fees, right? So we have all kinds
However,
of...
we wouldn't do that until they got to at least 10 or 15% down payment.
I'd say higher. Yeah, higher.
Yeah.
So just ideas for you guys. There's always a deal after deal after deal. Because remember, there's 31 grand due in 48 months. It's not huge. So that might come from another deal anyway, if we want to take her out. Might we call her in a year and say, hey, her name is Arden. Arden, you've got 3 years left of 31 grand. If we were to come across the money, we're calling all our sellers, how much would you be able to take in the next, 3 months? She would definitely discount that. So then we pick up another, whatever, 10 grand or so and take it for another deal. So just, again, I just took 2 pivots on you that created a 4th and a 5th payday. So this is a 6-figure deal all day long. It's just a matter of how strong in the 6 figures.
And I know, let me say this one point, because I know why Robert was asking, because it's for their deal. That's why he was asking me about if we would have in our head that we would rent it out. There are always extenuating circumstances. So, like, for instance, if we put a rent-to-own buyer in there first, and then we took it back over and put it back on the market, and we had a clock ticking, then it might be something that we'd be like, all right, well, we could rent for a year and then we'll sell it. However, that's never our first option. If you're stuck, which we've determined, and we've really gave it our best effort, Robert, I would say, for that particular property, renting it out is definitely a consideration to stop the bleeding.
Always. Any of this. Yep. Judy.
Couple things. First, did you make it contingent on a buyer?
I did not. And this is funny because she was asking me on email. That was the third question. First she asked about showings. Then she said, I'm turning to the clause now. Then she said, does this mean we got to wait or something like that? So I'm like, oh shit, I better look at what I wrote to her. So I did write to her that I would close it June 5th. And that's why I pushed it way out, knowing that she has to make the June 1 payment. I'm okay till July 1. I'm okay with this house selling before July 1, or I screwed up.
Yeah, it's a slam dunk just looking at the pictures from it. Yeah.
So you either make it contingent for the buyer, or you push it far enough out. Quite frankly, if it was coming up at the end of May and the holiday was coming, and I didn't have a buyer yet, I'd call the attorney and go, look, I got to do this, I got to do this the holiday, I need another 2 weeks. There's no way they'd back out, right? In theory. I hate to have to do that, but you can always extend the closing bare minimum 2 to 4 weeks, sort of acceptable.
Here. Did they say the reason they wanted the closing sooner? Maybe they'd already found a rental or something. I don't know if there was, but she was totally fine with June 5th closing after you said no.
Yeah, I just said no. I said by the time we get it all done, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay. And did you make it contingent on any inspections?
Oh yeah, the standard P&S got signed. So Corolla asked me today, what's next? I said, what's next is Sue's already getting the documents, Nick's looking at the marketing, and we'll get a home inspection, and Corolla will go out and help us with that.
Okay. Do you
I
already
know it's fairly new, Judy. It's like new. It's not old. Corolla, it's like a few years old, right? It's not old.
It's not old at all. It's a very new community as well.
Yeah, but I'll still put Judy just in case.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You bet. Vicky and Larry.
Larry.
Question, when you put a property in a trust and then change the beneficiary, is that a taxable event?
Well, most attorneys, I'm going to give you my non-CPA, and if Mallory has an answer to this, most attorneys are going to record it like a regular closing and charge of tax stamps. I don't even know what Florida has, if they even have them. I'm assuming they do. Anything to add, Mallory? No? You agree?
Typically when,
All right, no, you're eating.
that's okay. Typically when the property is established in a trust and you create some sort of a beneficiary, as soon as that beneficiary is triggered, that's typically when the tax is triggered as well. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that, but
That's okay. That's kind of, I said that, Mallory, because I don't want to be the one that, I would never, my attorney would be the one that didn't report that and then you get whacked. But, you know what I mean? You're trying to avoid that. So I would always do the transfer tax. In my career, have I ever taken a quick claim deed? Yeah. There was a guy that called me. We were at our old office way back, and I had followed up with this guy as a FISBO. Again, good story if you guys hear. Like several times, because he said, just wait, I'm trying to get custody of my grandson, and when I do, I'm selling this thing and I'm out of here. Well, he called me one day after like 9 months and said, I got custody, my truck's packed. Is it in the yard? I'm leaving. Can you come out? And so I went out, and with Sue's help, got the deed signed, notarized right there, and we owned the property. Adam backtracked and did some stuff legally, but we got the deed signed right away. I don't do that usually, but he was leaving literally cross country and said, here's my house. Adam.
Very similar deal that I just went on an appointment with. Did they discuss down payment at all? Never even came up?
Yes, in the email thread, Corolla was on it. So if I could do the thread without making a mess, maybe I could post it for you guys. But yes, he asked for down. So at one point, I think I gave him like 6 or 8 grand down, and instead of a total of 31, he would have got like 20, you know, something a lot less. So they opted to wait for the whole thing. I gave him 2 options. Some down, a lot less off the back for the multiple, or all 31 down at the end. And, you know, keep in mind, guys, when I first started, that wouldn't have been an option. I didn't have it. But when you have at least 3 or 4 properties going for you, then you have a little play, because you have 1s and 2s you should ignore, but you should have 1s and 3s scheduled, and you'll have those on a spreadsheet, and you're like, oh, cool. In March, I have. There were months in March where Nick and I were at our peak, where we'd have $250,000 scheduled in payday 1s for coming into March after tax season. So you get enough of those scheduled, then you know where you can play and when you can get aggressive on deals. It's your money. It's like kind of like the house money, if you will. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to some. First of all, anything else on that sub 2 deal? Everybody's clear as mud? Sweet. Let's go to some questions, and then Mallory has a brand new deal. I think it's sub 2, isn't it, Mallory? Yeah. But did you guys sign?
Yeah, I just have to update the contract and he's signing.
Great. So we'll do that towards the end. If somebody reminds me to shut up towards the end, we'll do that. Judy?
Yeah, if they had that much equity in it, why didn't they just list conventionally?
Do the math. I gave him the math that I gave you guys last week when me and Mike went through it. Listen now. I'll just wing it. I bet you it's going to come close. He said to me, I don't know why he didn't find the 380 comp that me and Nick saw playing his day. He said, one down the street, I think sold for like 370. Okay, I said, so I typed an email back to him, somewhere along these lines. And Corolla saw it. Okay, Andrew, 370, let me tell you what happens. Because they're new. It's probably their first house. I said, you're going to get, I think I used 96.5% of that price of 370. You're down to 357,050. And then you're going to pay your realtor 6%. Now you're at 335. Well, you owe 320. That's 15 grand. That's if you sell it. That's kind of the tone of my email, a little nicer. But basically, it was a reality check. Because I don't care what is on. Here's what's going to happen. And you're not going to sell right away. Maybe, who knows, right? So here's 31 grand if you can wait 4 years. And if you add up 319 and change and 31, I'm at like 351 before principal pay down. And Nick's going to bring that thing up. I mean, bare minimum 390, but he's taking 20 more grand than that. So we're fine. We're more than fine. But they're fine too, right? Because they're not coming out of pocket. They're not guessing. They're not doing showings. They go, oh, great, I can make Texas plans now. This is why we always say, listen to what the seller's saying. That's all we did. And I coupled it with what Corolla told me going there, because if I was there, I would have got the same vibe, right? And you put the 2 and 2 together, and you go, okay, they kind of want to be gone. Even though they're current, they want to be gone.
And the more I'm thinking of this, $399 might be the price.
I am too, actually. I think it's we stay there. So someone gets a good
Yeah.
or terms deal.